Hello everyone. This week we're talking about careers, which I presume is why most of you are here. And it's a good part of the course to take a little bit of a pause and to start to think about some of those bigger issues, because we've gotten the major structural parts of this unit out of the way, the learning the law, understanding the legal problem solving, all front-ended towards the end, which gives us a little bit of time at the end to focus on some of the more broader career-focused ongoing issues that you need to think about throughout your studies. And of course, 2 weeks before the end of term is not necessarily the best time to think about such things, because your other assignments and your other units are no doubt due in as well. So it's not such a hard set of objectives this week. We're going to get you started on producing your portfolio and talk about what a portfolio is and why it's important, and also some general tips about thinking about what to do about your career now, so that you don't get to the end of your third year of your studies and then start thinking, well, maybe I should start looking for a job now, or start thinking about what I want to do, because it's something that you need to start thinking about pretty much straight away. Sorry if you don't want to hear that, and sorry if you thought, well, if I can study, I can put off thinking about these things for a few years. But honestly, the career-minded people in law are already very active in getting internships and placements and volunteering very heavily and doing all those extracurricular things that they need to get those very competitive and prestigious places. And I suppose the one thing to start with is if your assumption is you can just sort of get a law qualification and walk off and get a job, then you are misinformed. There's a saying that some students tried to convince me of a couple of years ago, that P's make degrees, and that people don't care if you've got a law degree, as long as you've passed it, they don't care. Absolute nonsense. There are plenty of 40 different law programs in Australia today, or more maybe by now, and certainly someone with a whole lot of just passes in their transcript is not going to be exciting to an employer, or even to the HR person who does the first pass of filtering applications, which is where that sort of person generally ends up. They don't even have someone from the firm look at it. Some HR or selections person just goes, that one looks trash, and throws it away. Which is not to say that you need to have absolutely brilliant marks to get a job. And this advice, of course, is for law and criminology students. It's good advice across the board. You don't have to be brilliant across the board, and in fact some employers are quite wary of someone who has great marks and nothing else in their portfolio, because that tells them this is a person who doesn't have people skills and is going to be impossible to work with. So what they ideally want, they're obviously going to go for high marks wherever they can, but they're also going to go for people who have evidence that they are going to be a good fit for their organisation, and particularly that they have good people skills and that they're easy to work with. They're good at getting work done, they're good at project managing, and they're good at producing a good result. So this is where a portfolio comes in. Portfolio is a very important way to collect what we call artifacts, which is any piece of evidence you can put in your digital portfolio and present to a potential employer as examples of your work. So if you do, I know my students in understanding violence and conflict are doing mediations where they're videoing it and reflecting on their mediation skills. That's a great thing to stick in your portfolio. Doesn't mean every employer who sees your portfolio is going to look at all of the things you put in there, but they might be curious about some of them, and that might be the thing they're looking for, and they may focus on having a look at those things. So having a good quality set of artifacts is a start. And the guide this week talks about what sort of things you can include as artifacts. And then the next stage is the process of curating the artifacts. And I use the analogy all the way through of the museum of you. What you present through your portfolio is like walking into a museum and saying, oh, well, here's an artifact. Let's read what the description says, that contextualizes it, that explains it and tells us about it. And a really good portfolio is like that. And an employer is able to get a grasp of you as a person they can't get from a page of results. They don't look at a page of results and go, oh, I don't know what this person's like. Instead, when they have a chance to look at your portfolio, they get a pretty clear idea about what you're like and what your work is like and what you can actually do. So we'll be working through in the workshop this week ideas about creating a portfolio. Once upon a time, we used to be fairly limited to portfolio systems, where you'd upload your portfolio into a certain database and you'd share it that way. But these days there are so many options to do a portfolio, and I probably wouldn't recommend a portfolio system. You can use a web page to do something like Wix. You can do it as a Google Doc. You can do it in any format that you can share. And in fact, the more flexible options, the better, because one of the things you can do with a portfolio that's rather nice is you can make copies of it for each particular job. So you can build a sort of a master portfolio that has everything in it, but then if a particular job comes up with a particular emphasis, you can just copy it and then rearrange things, maybe delete some things, include some extra things that are specifically tailored to the job that you're going for. So that when an employer goes through their selection criteria and says, have you got this, have you got that, they can go straight to the section in your portfolio that demonstrates that you've got those. So we'll talk a little bit about formats and things. The university wants you to use Portfolium, but we've used that with students in the past and they did not like it. And I can see why, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in class as well. And honestly, it's a portfolio itself is nothing to be scared of. We've got some templates in there. But the key thing about portfolios is being able to collect things to put in it and to be on the lookout for things to put in it. What you don't want to be doing is 3 years from now putting a portfolio together for a job and going, oh my God, in second year I did this unit where I did this assignment on this, and that would have been really good to put in, but it's been 2 computers since then, I don't know if I've saved a copy of it. Whereas if you build your portfolio as you go and you start putting things in, that you do well, that's useful. The other thing to do is to be on the lookout for opportunities that come up that would create artifacts for your portfolio. So you get involved in a volunteering opportunity that you can do video as a part of. Here I am at the whatever event, volunteering and helping out. Here's some video, edit it, upload it to YouTube, put the link into your portfolio. And again, that's the sort of thing that gives you really great stuff to put there that if you think about ahead of time, you can collect. It's no good 2 years later going, oh, if I'd only done something on that day or remembered to see someone to get a reference or whatever, that would have been great in my portfolio. So the reason we do it now is for you to get ahead and to start thinking about those things. We talk about careers generally a bit this week. And I think for all graduates, no matter what your discipline is, it's a very changing workplace at the moment. And it's very hard for people to say, oh, well, this is the kind of jobs that are going to be available in 3 years' time. We don't know. Things are changing. They're changing all the time. And law is changing more than any area. And I'm pretty confident there's still going to be reasonable, good jobs for people with legal backgrounds, because we always need people, particularly who are systems thinkers and who understand the way regulation works. But I don't have a lot of confidence that in saying, oh, the legal profession is going to be thriving and we're going to be hiring a whole lot of people, because the indications are that it's not, that it's shrinking. It's offsourcing all its work to India and China, and the legal profession is really not looking for very many law graduates coming up. But that means looking at broader options and maybe better options than working there. So that's the sort of thing we're going to be talking about this week. We're also going to talk about things like digital footprint. Very important now to start thinking about what your digital footprint is. So from the early obvious stuff like not going out and hitting the ecstasy and recording videos of you on ecstasy and uploading them to your Facebook page under your real name, which happens all the time. And then people are called in by their employers and asked, what does this mean? And saying, look, that was 6 years ago, before I even started studying, doesn't really cut it. So we're going to look at the one side of digital footprint is which not creating a bad one under your own name. You can, to an extent, you can create a bad digital footprint under a pseudonym, but remember that face recognition software is getting better and better all the time. So if you're doing that, don't put pictures of yourself in that, because it's not going to be too long before snoopers are going to be able to just upload a photo of you when you go for a job and find every photo or video that has you in it on the internet. It's already feasible for intelligence agencies to do that. Won't be too long before job recruitment, that's the word I'm looking for. Job recruitment centres are able to do the same thing. The other thing, though, is also building a good, positive digital footprint. Again, if someone searches for you on social media when you go for a job and there is nothing there, they get suspicious. And saying, look, I don't do Facebook, I don't like Facebook, and which I honestly agree with. There are major problems with Facebook, but it looks suspicious to employers because they think the kids love Facebook and won't believe that you don't have anything there. So there's good things you can do with your digital footprint, where you can, upload a couple of holiday snaps and a couple of newsworthy articles every couple of months, and have a really professional presence there that you curate very, very carefully. That makes you look like a very, responsible, slightly engaged with social media person that's findable when people search for you. And there's been amazing things that have happened with, particularly with law firms, demanding people hand over their Facebook login and password before they'll consider them for a job, which is, I'm not sure about the legalities of, but I guess if you want a job badly enough, you'll do those sort of things. But there is a lot of fear about risk that firms have about what people do on their social media and how that'll reflect on the firm. Anyway, so that's the discussion we look about digital footprint, about being able to produce this beautiful, clean and wholesome image of yourself that when employers say, what do you do on social media, you can give them something that isn't too demanding for you to produce and maintain. All right, so we'll have a bit of time in the workshop this week to work through the basics of putting a portfolio together. Lots of time for asking questions. So it's a good time to come along and to see what sort of... we'll ask questions generally about the course, about career. And in the last 2 weeks, we'll be doing those optional job interview exercises where you'll use your portfolio, find a job ad, and you'll work with your peers will act as a interview panel, and we'll work through those interviews, which is a really, really useful exercise to do, not just as a potential job seeker, but it's also extremely useful to sit on the other side of the table as an interviewer, and to actually see how the process works from their point of view. It's a real game changer to do that. So look forward to doing that next week and the week after.